Hello, I'm Francis Judge, and this is Daily Ventures, a video encouragement to keep believers believing in our good God. Today I want to take a look at the well-known story of Cain and Abel. Hebrews tells us that Abel's sacrifice was acceptable because he offered it in faith. Hebrews 11 verse 4 in the NLT nicely brings out what we're going to see just now in Genesis. It was by faith that Abel brought a more acceptable offering to God than Cain did. Abel's offering gave evidence that he was a righteous man, and God showed his approval of his gifts. So today, I'd like to show you how the record in Genesis shows this in a particularly Old Testament way. Again, reading from the NLT. When they grew up, Abel became a shepherd while Cain cultivated the ground. When it was time for the harvest, Cain presented some of his crops as a gift to the Lord. Abel also brought a gift, the best portions of the firstborn lambs from his flock. The Lord accepted Abel and his gift, but he did not accept Cain and his gift. This made Cain very angry, and he looked dejected. "Why are you so angry?" the Lord asked Cain. "Why do you look so dejected? You will be accepted if you do what is right. But if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Sin is crouching at the door, eager to control you, but you must subdue it and be its master." Cain and Abel were both born after the fall and after the expulsion from the Garden of Eden that their parents, who had been born sinless but had then fallen, experienced. Cain and Abel were therefore both born with what we sometimes call a sin nature. That is that propensity in humanity to sin. And here we see that Cain had kind of gone down that track, but Abel had continued to press in to the things of God. How can I say that? We're getting there. A time came when the gifts that they had been given, because it says that they were both fruitful in different areas. Cain with the livestock, and Abel with the ground, with producing crops. And when harvest came, Abel took the initiative and he presented an offering to God. And Cain did the same likewise from the blessing of the fruit of what he had been gifted with. So they both responded to God. They both gave from what they had been blessed with. But it says immediately that Abel and his gift were accepted, but that Cain was not accepted. And then it immediately says that Cain's response to this is anger. If you realize that God had not accepted what you had offered, your words, your worship, your tithe, whatever it might have been, I don't know that your first reaction would have been anger. Most likely it would have been sorrow and a desire to put right. So already we have a hint of the fact that Cain and Abel were not the same kind of person, and that their offerings had simply shown what was already in their heart. The Lord doesn't leave Cain there, though. He challenges him and says, "Hey, why are you angry? What's going on in your heart?" God hadn't given up on Cain yet, and Cain is still able to hear the voice of God. But Cain's response to God's challenge is not good. That occurs in the verse just after where we stopped reading. But God explains to him what is going to happen if Cain continues with expressing what is in his heart. He says, if you don't master this thing that's like an animal that's wanting to jump on you, called sin, then it will become your master and it will rule you, and you will be totally in bondage to it. Obviously, Cain doesn't respond to this and gives in, and his anger becomes premeditated murder. It's not only the first murder in the Bible, but it's also one of the most blatant examples of what premeditated murder is. So it's not what Cain and Abel offered, but it's how they offered it. And that's what Hebrews picks up on. It calls it there that Abel offered in faith. He offered based on the faith that was already in his heart. He responded with gratitude to God. Cain, on the other hand, gave on the basis of what he had, and what was in his heart came out in his response to God not being fooled by his offering. So ultimately, It's not what we do that changes our hearts. It's what's in our heart that comes out in what we do. And this is the lesson of Cain and Abel.